or as a player, would you say that you know the way? The path from grassroots to collegiate and professional soccer is challenging, especially if it's your first time on this journey. It's much easier to find new teams to be part of at the recreational level. Sometimes elementary or junior high schools will offer some sort of soccer program. It's not always guaranteed, but in my experience, most schools do offer that in Tulare County. From here, a good way to go is high school soccer and or club soccer. I'm personally a fan of doing both at the same time, club soccer and high school soccer, but not every club organization allows you to play in high school. I'd say that's very understandable in the higher levels, right? Like if you're in an MLS Next club, maybe ECNL, but if you're in Gold Premier, it might not be the best option for you, especially if you aren't always starting. If you're not scoring all the goals, getting all the assists, and things like that, or if your team isn't winning every single tournament that they go to. In my experience, it's better to get minutes of playing time rather than chase that badge just to be part of the team or club. I say this because personally, I was a South Valley United player, and back then when I was in high school or transitioning to high school, it's been a while, so I'd forget all the details, but everybody left for a team in Clovis, and it was a similar situation to that which I just covered. Now, I say everybody, of course, not every single player. Players, including myself, stayed behind, and so I did, in fact, though, go over to Clovis to check it out. It was very crowded, very competitive. We had to drive an hour to train, and that was the whole club or anybody that went. All the different age groups pretty much went over there. Again, not everybody. I ended up staying behind with some other players. It ended up working out for me. I was able to continue playing in high school and club, and I got double the games, so I got double the experience, and I ended up really branching out as a player. I was a Valley champion as a freshman and ended that season's run as a state finalist, placing second. From high school and club environments to college and professional soccer is where it gets complicated and much more competitive. One thing that I have observed and reflected upon is the entitlement a lot of parents have regarding their child playing in college or playing professionally, um, domestically or abroad. It's like they behave as if they're owed something, and they might not even know how to develop their children properly for soccer, but they're just so sure that their kid's going to play at the next level. In my experience, it's often somewhat toxic. The reality is, unless your child is consistently outperforming, and I mean consistently, not every other game, but every single game, unless they're consistently outperforming their peers and competitors, you will likely need to be a journeyman or woman if you are seeking to play professionally. Not that many people watch the leagues around here, and unless you're going to ID camps and other events like those, you're very likely not going to get a scholarship or any interest at all. I will say that over the last 20 years, there really hasn't been that much of a difference. I haven't really noticed change, I suppose. Little differences, but in 20 years, I've gone, I've come back, and not much has changed. I was going to say that's partially, but I think it's more appropriate to say that's primarily why I opened ESS Academy. I didn't want to feed into a comfortable system. I'm not really trying to disrupt it. I just want to offer better for the place that we call home. Having gone ahead of this new generation of players, I can say that there's a feeling of being an outsider when you go to these trials outside of Tulare County. Maybe the players you go up against grew up together, played in the same club, same schools, all that stuff. And also, in my experience, there are times when a club will choose a homegrown talent just for the sake of claiming that they had a homegrown talent signed to a professional team. Is it fair? Not always. However, it is a reality that we have to endure. We are competing with the disadvantage when we have to travel. Because of this truth, I think it's just fine to provide something here in Tulare County that could give players the edge, or possibly down the road, provide an environment that is highly competitive, either semi professionally or professionally. With what I just said, I do hope that you get value as the viewer and insight into what the path forward for players could be like. For high school soccer, I say that performance does matter. If you want or need a scholarship, it really matters. Sometimes you just don't have access to a good program, so the networking and ID camps, summer camps, and events like that will be where your attention and resources should be focused. One mistake that many people make is they're set on a certain Division One university where it is unlikely they will be selected to play there. Nobody's really watching Tulare County that much. Things are changing a little bit, but it's more like the successes today are more built off of the backs of those that came before them, including players like myself. We kind of set the standard and we paved the way through our errors and flaws and all of those things. And now things are setting and starting to be good for more and more players. If your child is not part of an elite program and winning championships, it is even more unlikely that your child will be selected. And if they don't go in person to a camp for the coaching staff to see them, it's going to be very hard. And it's the same with club soccer. Unless you're going to top level tournaments and winning, or going to in person events so the coaching staff can see you, it is highly unlikely to find success. It's really all about attention, not in a toxic way, but who's looking, who's watching. The unfortunate truth for Tulare County is we lack quality soccer education. And if it's all we have, it might seem good, but in comparison to other counties, even within California, it's not so great. And people are just none the wiser about it. I do see things changing slowly, but again, in the 20 years, we still don't have a professional team of our own. And there's talent here, right? There are players who become professional from the area, but we are forced to go elsewhere, and there isn't an option here. There's no opportunity. This will sound upsetting for some. There was a ranking done by WalletHub showing that Visalia is the least educated out of all metropolitan areas analyzed in the US. Visalia sits with a rank of 150 out of 150 since August 1st, 2025. The article also states that, in fact, almost half of the top 10 cities were found in the Central Valley. Whether you agree with the article or not, this is what the world is saying about Tulare County. For those of you watching who are not soccer experts, I'd ask you to think about the idea that if Visalia is ranked the least educated city in the country, is our soccer education much different? What is the likelihood of playing professionally out of high school or from club? It is less likely in all of the lower divisions in the sport, but not impossible. If your child is not selected from high school, college, or club to play professionally, that doesn't mean it's the end. It doesn't need to be your final stop. There are semi-professional pathways to consider. However, it is not common to get scouted into a professional team without a solid network of people. I was actually very bad at networking because I used to just play and wouldn't need to talk much. I was always younger, like my time as a freshman on varsity. I was always like the little brother, so I didn't have to talk or have a need to network. When I started getting older, this heavily affected my ability to find teams to play for. The older I got, the less emails worked. It got more competitive, and I suppose I needed to talk more. When I was younger, coaches would be excited because I'd just come off of a championship. I'd be going to their ID camps, and as I got older, it's as though I aged out of interest. In the US, there is no promotion or relegation yet, so it's not common for scouts to go and watch the lower divisions play in an effort to find players. So if you think you'll play in the UPSL and get scouted by an MLS team, that's super unlikely. Of course, this is not impossible and depends on the player, the scout, the team, the stats, the timing, and so on. The reality is, depending on the scout, it could be more work than it's worth. So in their eyes, it's a waste of time to scout the UPSL and the other lower divisions. Having a good network of people to contact helps tremendously. This network can be grown through in-person interactions, social media like Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. With that being said, a road less traveled is for your child to become a journeyman or woman and go to another country to find a lower division team to play for and work their way up. It is good to think of it as a career. You start at the bottom and work your way up to a higher position in the company or in the organization. Another way to frame it could be your child gets an entry-level position in the organization and over time promote their way to middle management, followed by upper management, and finally earn an administrative role within any given team or business. If you can reframe your mind, that can really help you succeed as well, because you're not going to go somewhere and blow all your connections due to bad behavior and things like that. Basically, behaving in an unprofessional way. This is not a promise, but if your child is actually outperforming their peers and competitors, their chances of getting scouted to a higher division pro club in another country increase maybe every 6 months. They're consistent, committed, 6 months playing against other pro teams. That's where the eyes are. Even if it's not on TV, people are there watching and talking. Somebody's brother, mother, uncle, girlfriend, grandfather might know somebody. It could be a taxi driver. It's literally anybody that has those types of connections. The point is, you're getting that exposure, and every 6 months, you're further solidifying yourself. And someone might say, "Hey, did you see so and so?" If you can reframe your mind, and instead of wanting it in the first month or the first week, you dedicate 6 months at a time, especially if your child is younger. If your child is 21 or 22, they will have a little more time to develop. Obviously, the younger the better, but all hope is not lost for the slightly older young men and women looking to play in the pros. If NCAA collegiate play is your goal, be sure to sign up your child for with the NCAA Eligibility Center. This is commonly overlooked, and players find themselves ineligible. Also, if you take the path less traveled, it will serve you well to know that most countries only allow you a handful of months to visit them before needing to return home to reset the visa timer. In my experience, 3 months is allowed, but varies country to country, so you'll need to look up the laws for the country of interest on your own before traveling. It is very valuable in the pursuit of signing your first professional contract to have a passport or a legal document allowing you to live in that country permanently. Professional clubs are businesses. Some are small and some are big. To further clarify, some clubs are smaller, like the local corner store owned by a family of three, whereas the larger clubs are more like Nike, Adidas, Apple, and so on. Some have a lot of money and some don't. I think it's important to note that even here in the United States, but I'm going to be talking about clubs in other countries, the small clubs might not have the financial backing to support a foreign player. An example, if you have the 3 months to visit, train, and get used to the environment, the club might not pay for you to have a work visa, and so you can't stay there. You must come back home. And what happens sometimes is players come back home and they get comfortable again and they don't go back. They find out they didn't really want it, and that's their decision. And ultimately, it is okay. It is important to frame the mind in a way that the individual understands that here in the US or abroad, the smaller clubs aren't going to be where you should be comfortable. You should be uncomfortable, because that's where growth occurs, because that's where growth happens. You can use that as fuel for your career. Again, building your way up. Start at an entry level position, move up to middle management, and so on. It's important to know that it is very unlikely to get into a large club early. Most of us, because again, there is no professional culture here in Tulare County, will have to go somewhere else, and you're new there and they don't know you, they didn't grow up with you or watch you play since you were a child. It's really unfortunate for us, but we can still do things with what we have. If we can stay focused and stick to it, things can happen.